Alright guys, I'm going to quickly run through some notes for stem cells. So you'll find on Classroom a document that will allow you to take notes on stem cells as I run through this presentation. So stem cells. What we have here is a rough picture of a stem cell, and what stem cells do is they will change into the different specialized cells that your body will have, like nerve cells, blood cells, bone cells, skin cells, things like that. So, a quick story of life. So, life starts when a sperm fertilizes an egg, and once that egg is fertilized, it will start to divide into these small groupings of cells. This is called a blastocyte. So this is the earliest stages of life where the cells are dividing and creating this little mass of cells, which will eventually turn into a fetus and then a full-grown human. So some different things that stem cells do. So stem cells can do self-renewal. So this is where they are copying themselves and it'll turn into an identical stem cell. They'll just divide and it'll be two identical stem cells. They can also go through something called differentiation, which is specializing. So the stem cells will then turn into some sort of specialized cell, like we saw in the first slide, where you have like a nerve cell, a blood cell, skin cell. The stem cell will divide into something specialized, has a specialized function. Um, so these cells can be found throughout the body. Tissue cells, specialized cells can be found all over in the body once they have their specialized function. So why self-renew and why differentiate? So one stem cell needs to renew itself to maintain the stem cell pool. So you always have groups um, of stem cells in your body. So those cells can be specialized into those different cells. They can differentiate into or to replace dead or damaged cells throughout your life. So stem cells do both of these things. They will copy themselves and make new stem cells, and they will also differentiate to create specialized cells in the body. So answer to yourself, why do stem cells renew? And also, why do stem cells differentiate? So embryonic stem cells are found, like I said, in the blastocyte, which is that ball. It's a little mass of cells that are basically the new dividing cells that start a new life. So this slide is just kind of revisiting what we talked about before. So embryonic stem cells is a very early embryo, which will form into a fetus and then a adult human. So these are all stem cells here. As the blastocyte is, the cells are dividing. Those are all stem cells. So I'm going to talk about three different types of stem cells. You have tissue-specific stem cells, embryonic stem cells, and these new to science, pretty newly discovered induced pluripotent stem cells. So first we're going to talk about the tissue-specific. So tissue-specific stem cells can be found throughout the entire body. So they can be found on the surface of your eyes, in the brain, intestines, bone marrow, all that kind of stuff. So these are isolated from bone marrow and can give rise to the different specialized cells needed to have a functioning body. So, what do they do? So, these specialized cells, these tissue specific stem cells, are going to derive from your bloodstream and your bone marrow, and they're going to differentiate and turn into specialized types of blood cells, red, white blood cells, and platelets. The word here is multipotent. So, multi meaning many, and potent meaning form in this case. So, these take many forms. So, they can take, um, these tissue specific ones can take the forms of many different types of blood cells. The next type that we're going to talk about is the embryonic stem cells. So embryonic stem cells are pretty exciting because they can make all different types of cells in the body, and scientists call these ones pluripotent. So I'll get to that here in a second. So this is a picture of a human blastocyte. So this is that small mass of cells that are dividing the very earliest stage of life next to a human hair. So you can kind of see the size comparison there. So where do we find embryonic stem cells? We find them in the blastocyte, which is that mass of cells. Embryonic stem cells can be taken from the inner cell mass and then cultured to grow more stem cells. So scientists are trying to understand how and why embryonic stem cells produce these different specialized skin, blood, and nerve, all kinds of different specialized cells, and what controls that process. The big thing that scientists are trying to do is determine how these different cells how these embryonic stem cells turn into specialized cells. So like I said, these are called pluripotent. Pluri meaning all forms. So pluripotent means all forms. Embryonic stem cells will differentiate into all of these different forms. So this is a nerve cell, you've got bone and skin cells, blood cells, all kinds of different types of cells. So we have stem cells in our bodies all the time, because remember, stem cells divide, they copy themselves, and they also differentiate. They're essential for keeping us fit and healthy. They replace cells that are damaged or used up, and scientists are still learning about how the different kinds of tissue cells found in our bodies and how they work. So the challenges that scientists are trying to figure out is these different embryonic stem cells will turn into specialized cells under certain conditions, and they have to figure out what those conditions are. So under specific conditions, embryonic stem cells could turn into skin cells. Under different conditions, they would turn into neurons. Under different conditions, they would turn into blood cells and something like liver cells. And they don't really know what these conditions are in most cases. So there's a constant study of embryonic stem cells in today's science. So quickly think to yourself what the difference between embryonic stem cells and tissue-specific stem cells is. Also, there is a little bit of controversy in this topic. Some people oppose the use of embryonic stem cells for research in medicine. Reasons for this are it kind of crosses into the topic of when human life starts. So if you're taking embryonic stem cells from a blastocyte, is that basically taking like the early cells away from what is going to be a human being? So there's a little bit of controversy here on when life starts officially in science. So can you use the blastocyte cells to save lives, or is taking blastocyte cells from, or taking those embryonic stem cells from a blastocyte, is that actually taking a life? So the third type is this induced pluripotent stem cells, and this is kind of new to science, and I'll describe why this is important here. So induced pluripotent stem cells is taking a regular body cell, and changing genetically reprogramming it to turn back into, kind of reverse engineering it back into a embryonic stem cell. And then what you can do with an embryonic stem cell, as we know, they can differentiate into all these different types of cells. So the advantage here is there's no need for embryos. So you're not taking those cells from an embryo. You're actually reverse engineering them back into an embryonic stem cell to be used in science. So I'm going to quickly jump back through this stem cell jargon here, some vocabulary. So potency is a measure of how many types of specialized cell a stem cell can make. So is it one or many? Is it multi or pluri? Pluripotent can make all types of specialized cells in the body. Embryonic stem cells are pluripotent, and multipotent can make multiple types of specialized cells, but not all types. Tissue cells are multipotent. So then again, quickly answer to yourself, what are induced pluripotent stem cells, and what are the three main types, and where are they found? So this should be added to the Google Docs sheet that each of you have a copy of, and you can use that as notes. That is on Classroom, and that is it for today's lecture.